Hello and welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today we have another episode of New York Jets player previews. This is the 7th installment of the New York Jets player preview series. Today we will take a look at another New York Jets offensive player and another player on defense. We will take a look at newly signed left guard John Simpson and linebacker Jamien Sherwood in today's podcast. Before we begin, let me quickly tell you about our podcast partners. First, with our friends over at SeatGeek. SeatGeek is an app that gathers tickets from all over the internet and puts it into one spot to make it easier for you, the buyer. What makes SeatGeek so great is they rate each ticket from a scale of 0 to 10, so you know what type of deal you are getting, and you know if you are making a good decision or not on the ticket you are going to purchase. Plus, my viewers, use promo code Bubs on Sports for $20 off your purchase. Click the link in the description down below to download the SeatGeek app. Once again, that is promo code Bubs on Sports for $20 off your purchase. And this is tickets for any event, not just sports, not just football, anything, plays, concerts, shows. If you can buy a ticket for an event, SeatGeek has it. Promo code Bubs on Sports for $20 off your purchase. Also, our friends over at Huga House. You see me rocking my Huga House hat all the time on the show. If you want the hat I rock all the time, or one of the hats seen on Aaron Rodgers, even Shane Gillis, Shohei Ohtani, Tyler Conklin, many athletes and celebrities rock the Huga House vintage inspired hats. If you want to get any of their awesome hats, use promo code Bubs for 15% off your purchase. Click the link in the description down below to take you to the Huga House store and get yourself some swag. And at checkout, use promo code Bubs for 15% off. All right, now for today's New York Jets player previews, let's take a look at John Simpson and Jamien Sherwood. So we'll start on offense here with John Simpson. He is 6'4", 330 pounds, entering what will be his age 27 season. He is 26 currently. He will be 27 on August 19th. A 2020 fourth-round pick, 109th overall of the Las Vegas Raiders out of Clemson. He spent the first 3 years of his NFL career in Vegas with the Raiders and spent last season with the Baltimore Ravens. So 4 years total. He enters his 5th season in the NFL and his first with the New York Jets. He signed a 2-year, $12 million deal with a $3.5 million signing bonus, $6 million per year, and a $6 million guaranteed. So that's the contract there for John Simpson. He was a part of a full-on offensive rebuild, 3 new faces. We've already talked about Morgan Moses, and today we will break down Simpson, the second Raven that the New York Jets added. Of course, Moses through trade and Simpson through free agency. He will replace what was a very, very poor tenure for former left guard New York Jets Lincoln Tomlinson. Spent 2 years with the team, and to say his performance was underwhelming would be an understatement, and hopefully John Simpson gives us a lot more production than what Lincoln Tomlinson did in his 2 seasons with the team prior to being released early in the offseason. Now, Simpson has played 52 games in his career, 38 of those 52 he has started. He played all 17 regular season games last year and the 2 playoff games. So played all 19 games for the Ravens last season, started all 19 games. So went into a very big role, played a very big role for the Ravens, and was very productive in his role with the Baltimore Ravens. And Simpson is one of the more underrated Jets. I will say that right away, and I may end up repeating myself and saying it again at the end of this episode, but you look at all the signings that the New York Jets made this offseason, whether it was Mike Williams or Tyron Smith or even just a trade, trading for Morgan Moses, even, the trade, for, of course, for Hassan Reddick. You look at all the moves that the Jets made this offseason, even through the draft and drafting, Olu Fashanu and bringing in all these different pieces. John Simpson kind of flies under the radar, and he really kind of flies under the radar from the offensive line perspective because everybody's talking about AVT. Everybody's talking about, Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses and Joe Tippmann, and rightfully so. Those are 4 really, really, really good players. But John Simpson kind of enters the season as the under the radar guy out of that, core group of players up front for the New York Jets. And it'll be really interesting to see what he will do now with a 2-year contract, a big opportunity, entering really the prime of his career, had an interesting playing time in Vegas where he started every game in 2021, only started 2 games in 2020, only started 2 games in 2022, then started all 19 games last year for the Ravens. A big opportunity for him to really break out in the NFL and really break out in the prime of his career as he enters year number 5 after 3 in Vegas and, of course, 1 with Baltimore. And I think most people would agree, look, if John Simpson, because you really don't know how high his ceiling is, you really don't know how much better he can be than he already has been or how he was last year. A lot of people have kind of said if John Simpson is your 5th best offensive lineman for the New York Jets this season, that means you're probably having a pretty good year up front. And that basically means if he's solid and if he's just, because when you look at the other guys, right, Tippmann, high ceiling, Tyron Smith, future Hall of Famer, AVT, all pro potential, Morgan Moses, a solid veteran who has been in the NFL forever. Those guys have proven a lot more or potentially could prove or potentially do great things more so than maybe John Simpson, whose ceiling might be a little bit lower, but you're going to get a high floor, consistency, and a really, really good player. A very underrated piece, to put it simply. Now, when you look at some of the numbers, like I said, started all 19 games last season. That was 1,118 snaps with ranked 10th among left guards. So his top 10 in snaps played amongst left guards last season, and he allowed just 1 sack. Really flashed as a pass blocker last year. A mauler in the run game, somebody that can definitely do a lot of damage in the run game, which we'll get to. But some of his pass blocking numbers, you watch some of his pass blocking reps last year and some of his film and highlights from last season really flashed as a pass blocker for the Baltimore Ravens in his 19 starts. When you look deeper into some of the numbers, his average time to pressure last year was 3.32 seconds. That was 5th best amongst left guards. Otherwise, the 5th slowest time to pressure. Minimum of 300 snaps. So ranked top 5 among left guards in time to pressure. To put that into perspective, from what the Jets had at left guard last year, cough, cough, Laken Tomlinson. The Jets last season, their left guards allowed a 9.7% pressure rate and a 2.74 seconds average time to pressure. That 9.7% pressure rate was 6th highest, also known as 6th worst in the NFL among left guards. And that 2.74 seconds average time to pressure was 4th quickest / 4th worst in the NFL. So not only was John Simpson 5th best among left guards, better when it came to average time to pressure, he also was better when it came to pressure rate. Jets left guards last season, cough, cough, Laken Tomlinson, allowed a 9.7% pressure rate. John Simpson allowed a pressure rate of 4.19%. So about 3% less than what the Jets saw last year at left guard. That 4.19% pressure rate, according to PFF, ranked 21st among all left guards. I think eligible was about 76 or whatever in the NFL. So definitely well above average when it came to pressure rate allowed and significantly better than what the Jets got last season. And that's why this move's flying so much under the radar. Is I don't think people realize that John Simpson stepping into a really good situation. The Jets last year were so bad at left guard that even if John Simpson is what he was last year, he didn't even have to get much better. But even if he was just what he was last year, he is going to be a huge, huge upgrade. You just look at these numbers. If you put him into the offensive line last year, he would have been miles better than what the Jets got. He also had a pass block win rate of 92.5%. So really flashed last season as a pass blocker, and you hope he can do the same thing this year. Now, One of his best games came against San Francisco. The reason I bring that up is the Jets play them week 1, so it'll obviously be a fun battle. We'll see if Simpson could do it again. But last year against San Francisco on the road, he allowed 1 pressure on 44 pass blocking snaps. Jets will face them in week 1. If you get that out of John Simpson, you probably put yourself in a pretty good situation to win, to open up the year on Monday Night Football. So all really good, all really positive there. One thing that Simpson needs to work on is penalties. And penalties were a serious, serious problem for the New York Jets last season. False starts were the biggest ones, the most frustrating ones. Killed drives. An offense that already couldn't move the ball was really in a bad spot when you get a false start penalty and instead of 1st and 10 or, I don't know, 2nd and 5, you find yourself 2nd and 10 or 1st and 15, and the drive's over. I mean, how many times last year did the Jets not be able to move the football plus false start penalties? They just killed themselves. So Simpson needs to be significantly better. He had 11 penalties last year, which was 2nd most among left guards. And that has something he struggled with a little bit in his career, has been penalties. You hope that this is something that it can get ironed out. You hope this is something that doesn't carry into this season. My positive outlook on all the penalties last year up front for the Jets offensive line was all the moving pieces, not really knowing each other, not really having much chemistry, and sometimes trying to make up for each other's mistakes, sometimes trying to get a quick start on a play, which causes those false starts. Also, the offense was so bad. I don't think many of these guys had any clue what was going on. So you hope Simpson can drop the penalties significantly because 2nd most, 11 penalties is a lot. That is something he does need to work on. But as a pass blocker, shine last year. And as a run blocker, when you look at the run blocking statistics, they come in kind of average. Nothing crazy. But when you watch his film and you watch the way he dominates guys in the run game, the eye test is a lot better than what the numbers show, I believe, in the run game. This guy's a mauler. This guy is just smash mouth, get after you, knock you down, just downhill blocker, get to the 2nd level, crush guys, open up huge running lanes. I mean, this is a guy that is not afraid to just absolutely run over you. And I think watching him and watching his film is more fair to him to judge him run blocking based off of then what his actual numbers show you. I think the eye test is a lot more impressive. And then the eye test shows you more of what Simpson is as a run blocker. You're getting a really solid player. And I think if he does what he did last year, it's a massive upgrade. He doesn't have to be anything special. He doesn't have to be the Jets' best offensive lineman. That's what AVT, that's what Tyron Smith, that's what those guys are there to do. But Simpson's in a really good spot. He's going to be next to Tyron Smith. He's going to be next to hopefully a center taking a big year 2 jump. And that should put him in a really good spot as well, as he's in the prime of his career, 27 years old, entering year 5. So that's John Simpson. We now move on here to defense and to the linebacker position. Jamien Sherwood. A little bit of a depth piece here we're talking about at linebacker, the 3rd linebacker for the New York Jets. Jamien Sherwood, 6'2", 216 pounds, 24 years old, a 2021 5th-round pick, 146th overall out of Auburn. Jamien Sherwood has had a very interesting start to his NFL career. And I will say this, Jamien Sherwood has, I think, surprised a lot of people for what he was able to do last season. And it surprised a lot of people for what he maybe can do this year and maybe even moving forward in the future as a potential starter option down the road. But this was a guy that, of course, was drafted in 2021, taken in the 5th round, 146th overall, was a safety coming out of Auburn. The New York Jets wanted to convert him. They converted him to linebacker. And that right there was a massive, massive ask for a 5th-round safety out of Auburn to come in, first-year system under Robert Saleh, and transform from a safety to a linebacker in the NFL. Was a very, very big ask for the New York Jets. And it took a good 2 years of development for Jamien Sherwood to really kind of come into form as a linebacker, come into form as a solid depth piece for this defense. Because the first 2 seasons, he didn't do a whole lot. He was primarily in a developmental role. Unfortunately, his rookie campaign was cut short due to injury. But last year sort of took off with more playing time as the actual third linebacker and enters this year, I think, with a little bit more excitement around him as a guy that can maybe continue to produce and gives you hope that maybe down the road he could potentially start for this defense once a guy like CJ Mosley eventually sails off into the sunset. But I'll tell you what, Jamien Sherwood has been a pretty big save for the New York Jets. Because you look at that 2021 draft class, and it's ugly, right? Zach Wilson, failure. Elijah Moore, Michael Carter, the North Carolina running back Michael Carter. Now, a couple guys have worked out, right? Brandon Echols still with the team, depth guy at corner. Of course, MC2, amazing slot corner. Jamien Sherwood has worked out. Other than that, guys like Hamza Nasruddin, Jason Pinnock, all those no longer on the team. So for Sherwood, a 5th-round pick actually kind of hitting and landing for Joe Douglas, I think was pretty big for him because at first, I don't think any Jet fan really thought this safety to linebacker for a 5th-round pick was ever really going to work. But turns out he's turned into a really nice depth piece. So when you look at his 2021 season, he only played 5 games. Unfortunately, was cut short due to a torn Achilles. And then you went into 2022, and the Jets went out and signed Quan Alexander as their third linebacker behind Quincy Williams and CJ Mosley. And Jamien Sherwood was still buried on the depth chart, barely played in all 17 games, but was mainly a special teams guy and only played 25 defensive snaps. So you kind of went into last year. A lot of Jets fans, I'll admit, myself included, wanted Quan Alexander back for the 23 campaign. He was so good in 2022, and we really didn't know what to expect out of Jamien Sherwood last year because he barely played. He played 22 games in his NFL career, 25 defensive snaps. This was mainly a special teams guy that now you're asking to step in and basically fill the shoes of what Quan Alexander did in 2022 and do that moving forward. You're asking a lot for a guy to do that was a safety turn linebacker. You had a lot of questions because we really never saw what he could do. And sure enough, he goes out there and puts together a very productive year last year. And I think surprised a lot of Jets fans, a lot, including myself. Played all 17 games, 194 defensive snaps, and played around 17% of the defensive snaps. Now, that wasn't quite what Quan Alexander did. Quan Alexander played a lot more. Now, I think part of it was Quincy Williams in 2022 was good, but last year he really took off. I think that was probably part of it. Quincy Williams was out there so much more and was such a more of a lethal player, like just broke out last season, was dominant. 2022 he was good, but he completely went to another level last year. I think that could have been part of the lower play time for Quan Alexander because Quincy Williams got that much better. But Quan Alexander played 17 games, 559 snaps, and around 49% of the snaps defensively in 2022. So Sherwood played a little bit less, but was in that Quan Alexander role and filled the shoes pretty well. He had 46 total tackles, a career high. 1 forced fumble, 1 pass defended, 3 tackles for loss, and just 2 missed tackles. This was a guy that I think showed you a really strong ability to make tackles in the open field, show you promising sideline to sideline speed, and I think overall show you some positive traits. And his development has come a very long way. It really has. And I think you're going to hopefully see continued growth out of Jamien Sherwood. Now, look, this is not a guy that's going to go out there this year and play, not going to go out there and have 110 tackles and dominate. That's not his role. Third linebacker. But, for a guy that had forced fumble last year, 46 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, played 19% or 17% of the defensive snaps, 194 snaps total. I think you may see that number increase a little bit this year, possibly. Maybe he gets up to 20%, 22%, maybe more than that. We'll see. But I think Sherwood has gotten to the point where, and knock on wood, this never happens, but if Quincy Williams or CJ Mosley would to have ever have to miss a game or got banged up and had to miss 2 weeks. Sherwood has gotten to the point, and I think for myself, I've gone to the point where I think you can trust Jamien Sherwood. You couldn't, I mean, going into last year, really couldn't trust him, but coming out of last year, going into this year, seeing the continued growth, seeing the continued development, he's a guy that I think you could trust to step in for a game or two as a starter. And you can 100% trust as a third linebacker to play roughly, 20% defensive snaps, 45, 50 tackles, 2-3 tackles for loss. Solid open field tackler, have some of that sideline to sideline speed. For a guy that converted to a linebacker, he's turned out to be pretty successful so far. And who knows, maybe down the road, he is a CJ Mosley replacement down the road. 2 years from now, let's say, maybe. We'll see. But for now, he's a solid depth piece. In his career, 39 games played, 77 tackles, half a sack, 1 forced fumble, 1 pass defended, 5.5 stuffs, and really a guy that is kind of, and 4 tackles for loss. 3 of those came last year. Really a guy that has kind of saved that draft class as well a little bit. Now, that draft class is very ugly, 2021, but hits on Sherwood and the hit on Michael Carter II in the later rounds make it look a little bit better. Hitting on Michael Carter was the biggest thing. Sherwood next, and then, of course, AVT. But that was a first-round selection. You kind of knew what you were getting there. So that's Jamien Sherwood and John Simpson, offensive line left guard and linebacker. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, your expectations for both of these players. And we'll have a lot more content coming your way. We will have a 8th and 9th episodes will be up later this week on Wednesday and Friday, so stay tuned for that. And as always, hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned. A lot more content coming your way. Until next time, JETS, 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 Jets.